Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is about the end times couple and all the mysterious deaths surrounding Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell. We've got 5 mysterious deaths here in this case. This is an intense one. This is going to be kind of confusing, and if at any point of time you feel even the slightest bit confused, it's okay, because it's a complicated case with a bunch of family members and tangential folks, but I'll try to make it as clear as possible. Note, this is an ongoing criminal case, and all the people mentioned in this video are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So all the comments here in this video, they're opinions. They're my opinions. And I've called this research from court documents, police reports, 911 calls, body cam evidence, news reports, released interviews with certain tangential people and the suspects. And I put all this together for you, but I want you to know that anything that's said, it doesn't make somebody automatically guilty. A judge or jury decides the guilt of a party, not some random YouTuber. With that caveat out of the way, let's get real comfortable with the word allegedly, because you know what? We're always going to cover our behind. This case came to the national attention when there was a call for information regarding the missing children of Lori Vallow. Let me put a picture of her up someplace. These children, Joshua, JJ, that's what I'm going to call him, JJ Vallow, age 7, and Tylee Ryan, age 17. They were allegedly missing since on or about September 23rd, 2019. That's what we were told at the time. Sadly, now these children, these poor children's remains have been located on the property owned by Chad. This video, it's an attempt to piece together in a linear timeline the alleged evidence, the circumstantial evidence, the facts, the whereabouts, the people involved, the people that are tangentially involved, and the possible other murders and or suspicious deaths surrounding this couple, this mysterious end times doomsday prepper couple. Somebody called them the grave digger and the gold digger, which you can get a chuckle out of it, but there's really nothing funny about this. Now that the children's remains have been found, it's not funny, and we're going to mix in a little speculation, some dot connecting. But again, this is all an opinion that's put together from the facts as we know it, which may or may not be accurate. So I'm going to just give you a brief history of Chad Daybell. Chad Daybell and Tammy Douglas Daybell, they meet at Brigham Young University, and Tammy was a voracious reader. She and Chad, they marry, and they both have literary interest. He likes to write books and she likes to read them, so they founded a book company. They have 5 children together. They're older once this story kicks into once you get into the meat of this story, they're already older. So they have 5 children together, and Chad authors over 20 books geared towards the LDS community, the Mormon crowd. One of the non-LDS books that he does publish, he pens and publishes, is called One Foot in the Grave, Secrets of a Cemetery Sexton. You might say, what does sexton mean? That means grave digger. He was a grave digger, and he even wrote a book about his experience, or a book fictionalizing his experiences being a grave digger. Chad Daybell's an interesting character. He boasts of near-death experiences, which have lifted this veil, the veil between the worlds. So his near-death experiences have lifted the veil into the spirit world for him, and he can just access that. All right? Throughout his life, allegedly, Chad was always having visions, and these visions would prompt him spiritually to do things. And in my opinion, Chad uses his visions, and uses his visions to manipulate the people around him. Did he believe his own visions? Maybe he did. But he also uses his visions, in my opinion, to manipulate the people around him. Chad and Tammy Daybell are married 30 years. Chad also publishes books for other folks, not a lot of them, but a few. And he published an author named Julie Rowe, who is another doomsday prepper, and they bond over near-death experiences, allegedly, and they become, or they are members of a people group. And so it just gives you kind of an idea of Chad, though he has had a seemingly stable marriage for 30 years and had, raised a family of 5 children with his wife Tammy, that, he has some kind of unorthodox beliefs. And so that's nothing new when you enter the timeline here. I'm going to give you a brief history of Lori Vallow. Joshua, we'll call him JJ Vallow. She's the adopted special needs son of Lori Vallow and Charles Vallow. Charles is her 4th husband, you guys. Her 4th. Her 5th one will end up being Chad Daybell. Okay? Her first husband was like a high school sweetheart. Her second husband, didn't even leave any memory for me. The third one she had issues with. That's Ty Lee's father, Joe Ryan. We'll get into all this. Her 4th one is Charles Vallow, seemingly a really great guy, by the way. And then the 5th one is Chad Daybell. So buckle up. JJ, her son, her adopted son JJ, who is also in the family, by the way. So she's adopted a family member's child. I don't want to make it too complicated, but JJ has autism. He's a special needs child. He takes ADHD medication, and he has like a service dog to help him calm down. He's got like iPad apps to calm him down. And he's just a special needs child. So that's something to know when you're hearing this story. Charles, who marries Lori, even went as far as to convert to LDS, I believe from Catholicism. So let me let you know that this guy was willing to change his religion to marry Lori. Tylee Ryan is in the family with them. Again, she is the biological child of the husband before. She's the biological child of Lori Vallow and Joe Ryan, her 3rd husband. And Lori, at this point of the story that we pick up, she's previously in the past had been scrapping quite a bit with her 3rd husband, Joe, over custody of Tylee. When the story is picked up here, those custody issues are not a burning down factor. But you've got to factor into a story of somebody's mental state that they've had issues with custody with some previous husband that went on for years. Okay? Trust me, I am not giving Lori an out. Just giving you the information that she had a contentious custody battle with her 3rd husband. And though it's over, she could have also been a little bit punchy about future custody issues or anything having to do with drama. She seemingly loves the drama. But I just want to let you know that, if you want to figure that factor into it, you can. So Lori marries Charles Vallow. And after a while, and he was seeming like one of those type of guys that could get along with his own exes. This wasn't his first marriage either. Granted, I don't think it was his 4th marriage, but it wasn't his first time at the rodeo. And he was friends allegedly with his ex, Cheryl, and allegedly Cheryl met Lori and said, "Well, she seems off." Like, I think she liked her at first, but then went, something's not right with this one. Again, if you want to give a little backstory, Lori isn't the most stable person in the world. Is she as unstable as a bottle of nitroglycerin? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying she couldn't go around in the world and not function. But something was off with her. People are coming forward saying, yeah, even back when they first married, something was off with her. Just saying. Just to give you a further insight into Lori's household and the people around her. Whenever she was having custody issues with Joe Ryan, the father of Ty Lee, Lori's brother, Alex Cox, Lori's maiden name is Cox, so Lori's brother, Alex Cox, found her ex, Joe, her that she was having the custody issues with, found him in a parking lot and shot him twice with a stun gun. Yeah, resulting in chest pains, and he fractured his wrist. So Joe Ryan fractures his wrist. Alex Cox, Lori's brother, got 3 months in jail and allegedly had to pay restitution of $5,000 for his assault and battery on Lori's ex. We have a history of Alex Cox being the strong man for Lori when she feels she needs him to be. Keep that in mind. Also, during the custody dispute with Joe Ryan, Lori said to social workers allegedly, quote, death would be an option before she'd hand over Tylee Ryan to her dad. And Joe's sister thought Lori was a sociopath. And Joe died on April 2nd, 2018. His death was ruled a heart attack. But this is where we're entering our story. You enter your story with a man that's been with his wife of 30 years, raising 5 kids, with some, I don't want to say the word crazy, with some unorthodox beliefs about past lives and lifting the veil and getting visions. And then you have this woman who's been married a whole bunch of times that has kindly taken on adopting one of the family's children. She's got another child with a man, Joe Ryan, that they've had a lot of contentiousness with, that she's had to, her brother took it upon himself, or she had her brother go and attack her ex, and he did jail time over it. So she's got a lot of drama going on, and that when people meet her, they say she seemed off. Like she just wasn't 100%. She wasn't 100% mentally stable to them. But again, obviously not unstable enough that anybody did anything about it. So that's the backstory when we're entering this story where there's some missing kids, and this is where you start off. Oh, also, Lori's ex-husband, Joe Ryan, when he dies on April 2nd of 2018, before we start the story off, he allegedly dies from a heart attack, and it's ruled not to be a suspicious death, but they had no reason to think at that point, because there wasn't a whole mound of bodies for them to be suspicious of his death. However, Lori, regardless of whether it was a natural death or not for Joe Ryan, Lori Vallow allegedly, and I think she's raising his child, allegedly discouraged her own daughter from mourning her father. And Joe's sister wasn't even notified of his death. So Joe allegedly has a heart attack and is found 3 weeks later in his house when the neighbor's dog smells something, smells the decomp, and they find Joe. Lori doesn't even bother, because she was still the next of kin, or for notification's sake. Lori doesn't tell his family that he's found dead. She doesn't, and then she actively just kind of blows it off and doesn't even seemingly want her daughter to mourn the death of her father. That, to me, is very odd, disturbing, and even a little cold-blooded. Joe's body, since no next of kin was notified but Lori, his body went unclaimed for a period of time and was cremated. So at this point, I don't know what could be gained from trying to investigate whether his death was truly natural. And if you ever go back and watch this over again, or you already know what I'm talking about, you would definitely want to look into that death too, but it's too late. So let's get into the main players. At this point, it's unknown when the main players, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, first met, and I guess it's really, truly not that important. There was, for example, an event at St. George's on November 16th to 17th of 2018. Chad and Lori allegedly met there. Maybe, allegedly, Melanie Gibb, a friend, introduced them to each other. And they discussed their more radical beliefs than the LDS church doctrine would allow. So Chad tells Lori, when they first meet, that they'd been married in previous lifetimes. And she's starting to explore these unorthodox doctrines, and she meets Chad Daybell, who's got all these visions and ideas. So right off the get-go, Chad Daybell is wooing Lori. He's manipulating Lori. He's bonding with Lori on a spirit, on a spiritual level, on the spirit plane. Hell, I don't know. And she bites it. She takes it hook, line, and sinker. He's just reeling her right in. Allegedly, Chad had individually cultivated these types of relationships with men and women. I don't think Lori is the only one he thought this, I would say did this to, but that implies that he did it with some kind of malice. I think that he might just think, whenever he meets somebody, oh, I knew you in that previous life. I don't know if he was a fantasist. I do not know. But I do know that he tells her that, we were married in a previous life. So they bond immediately and it's deepened. And apparently by this time of his 30-year marriage, Chad's wife, Tammy, she's not a helicopter wife, seemingly. She's not going to these events where he's schmoozing it up and meeting these ladies and even men. And I don't mean to imply that he did something sexually with the men. I have no idea. But there is allegations that this isn't the first rodeo he's been in. He kind of takes this approach with people. And some people bite and some people don't. Lori and Chad, they bond over these unorthodox religious beliefs. And they definitely knew each other by January. If you want to put a pin in it. They definitely knew each other by January of 2019 because they were on a podcast together. And it was up on the internet for a short while. So it was called Time to Warrior Up. Seemingly they and any of their friends involved in these kind of clusters of people who like to get together and talk about this stuff, they really don't want to lose temple access by openly speaking about these more unorthodox beliefs. So you got to think about that. People want to call this a cult, and it very well could be a cult, because who in a cult says, hey guys, I'm in a cult. Yeah, we're in a cult. No, people who are in a cult never think they're in a cult. You follow me? Until they're deprogrammed, people who are in a cult don't think they're in a cult. Were they in a cult? If you ask me, I'd say, yeah, kind of in a way. They became, for all intents and purposes, they became kind of a little cult. Okay? That's my opinion. Now, they don't agree. Chad and Lori Daybell, they participated in Preparing a People podcast. And apparently, allegedly, this podcast and similar videos, they espouse the end of the world beliefs, doomsday prepping, The website that was associated with this Preparing a People has since disavowed, illegally, thrown it out there, that they disavowed any kind of association with the Daybells. But regardless, these Prepping a People podcast folks, they have distanced themselves from all the shenanigans that have come out. So, FYI, they're not a part of the cult. According to people's opinions now, Lori had already been obsessed with Chad's books and his beliefs, and maybe just meeting him sealed the deal. And then when he added the bit about being married to her in the past lives, that was just icing on the crazy cake. I don't know. So allegedly, by 2019, Lori's having delusions that her first husband was the Mormon Joseph Smith in a previous life, and that Lori believed she was a reincarnated God. And these topics and these chats, they don't represent LDS teachings as such. So, a group of people, I'm not calling them a cult, I'm calling them a group of people, 6 or more. They gravitated together, sharing these beliefs, building on each other's beliefs. You got Chad Daybell as the head, with his visions and his books and the whole 9 yards. You've got Lori Vallow, kind of like a little disciple, all right? You got Lori's brother, Alex Cox, the one that stun-gunned her ex in a parking lot due to, over custody disputes. So he's part of it too. You got Lori's niece, Melanie Boudreaux, okay? Because she was interested in this stuff too, allegedly. You got Melanie Gibb. So there's 2 Melanies. And I'll say Melanie B and Melanie G to keep it straight. So Melanie Gibb, she was somebody that also wrote novels and was interested in both Chad's ideas and was a friend with Lori. And then you have someone named Zulema, which I personally don't know much about. But she was allegedly another friend from the church. And this was kind of the group that would meet and talk about this kind of stuff. And maybe not even meet all at the same time. But that was the loose-knit group. And Chad and Lori were the heads of the group eventually. And they were like ahead of, in their mind, it was going to be 144,000 people that they were going to be ahead of. And I believe that's in the book of Revelation. I didn't go and look this up because this is going to get so fantastical. I don't even want to try to like buttress it with biblical backup. I mean, they're going to be the group of 144,000 people. So, you know, if you want to say you're the head, then you're a cult leader. So it's 2019. Chad and Lori have met. They're getting a loose-knit group of friends. They're like-minded people. Charles is still married to Lori. Chad is still married to Tammy. Charles goes off on a business trip because seemingly his work requires him to take a lot of business trips. And Chad Vallow stays at Lori's house for a Mesa event. So Chad Vallow's going on all these speaking tours, doing podcasts, doing kind of like collabs, I guess. And, you know, sometimes Lori's involved. Sometimes Lori's, I guess, a participant or maybe just watching, who knows. But so she lets Chad stay at her house while her husband's out of town. Now, granted, I think other people were there as well, but hinky, right? It's January 2019, and Lori leaves for 58 days. She leaves the marital home. She starts moving Charles Vallow's assets around. She cancels his plane tickets. She sabotages him, essentially. She drains his business accounts right before payroll, so where he needs to pay other people. She's draining his business accounts of up to maybe, I think it was $35,000. Takes his truck from the airport because he's going on these business trips, leaving his truck at the airport to come back home and go, you know, get in his truck and go home. But the truck, she moves the truck. So she cancels plane tickets, you know, essentially trying to leave him stranded places, allegedly. And then when he comes back, flying into the main airport there, he won't find his truck there because she's taken the truck. I mean, can you imagine that kind of level of sabotage? Changing the locks at the house. This kind of stuff starts going on. So Charles Vallow goes and does the right thing. He goes to the police. He doesn't go and get somebody tased in a parking lot, you know? He goes to the police, and what's great is you can see this stuff on the body cam video. What's not great is the outcome of this. Now, granted, you've got hindsight, 2020. You could look at these interactions and go, "Ooh, police, you dropped the ball. You dropped the ball not once, not twice, not three times." I mean, like, these body cam videos, these repeated issues, and you know now that Charles was telling the truth. It hurts. It hurts because it's hard sometimes to see what the truth is. But they, in my opinion, dropped the ball. Charles Vallow goes to the police, says that he's just trying to get into his own home. And he tells them that his wife has lost her mind. Quote, she's lost her mind. He tells the police that Lori threatened to murder him. And so I don't want to say dismissive. There's a dismissive kind of tone where every single sentence seemingly Charles said gets really questioned. Well, what did she say exactly? And well, that doesn't really sound like a threat. That kind of thing where, I mean, can't you just yes, you want to make sure that he's not being hyperbolic, right? She's going to kill me. I will have you destroyed. I mean, they pick at what he says until almost it's like that's not what she said, or it wasn't that what's her intent. And I mean, he tells the officer that his wife is having delusions and thinks she was married to James the Just and Maroney and all this stuff. It's whack. Charles tells the police that her mental state had gotten really bad in the last 7 months, but actually hadn't been that great for 4 years. So that's testimonial evidence now. I mean, as much as you want to say that she did things with bad intent later, there's proof even by her husband that she really wasn't 100% stable for the last 4 years. That's from his own mouth. My opinion, again, is that the officers, they were slightly dismissive of Charles. I mean, after all, the story that he's telling them is crazy. That she's lost her mind, that she's gotten really bad, that she did all this crazy stuff with his money and his truck and his bank account and all this stuff. And he kept mentioning his son over and over and over, mentioning his son, JJ. And that Lori had said to him, quote, "Come take the kids. I don't care what happens to them." And of course, they even minimize that. Well, that doesn't mean she's going to harm them. That kind of stuff. Allegedly, Chad Daybell convinced Lori that Charles was possessed by an unclean spirit. And per Chad, that an evil spirit had attached himself to Charles Vallow, essentially dehumanizing Charles Vallow. If he's possessed, he's not really human anymore. And so Charles is he doesn't know what's going on with his wife. He just knows she's just talking a bunch of crazy stuff, and now she's starting to make his life difficult. She's sabotaging him. So he calls on the police for help, and he wants his wife, I would call it Baker acted, but I don't think they have the Baker Act in that state. He wants her psychologically examined. So on January 31st, 2019, the police are looking to locate Lori Vallow for this involuntary hold that her husband has acquired. And they talk with Charles Vallow, and he says essentially that he thinks that she could be a danger to others, maybe even a danger to herself, but definitely implying that she was a danger to him because she had threatened him. Though the police poo-pooed it, it really didn't matter because a psychiatrist needed to be the one to make the call on that, and that was Community Bridges. So there was some paperwork that was trying to be served on her to make her go, or the police to get her and make her go to get a psych eval. We would call it a Baker Act here in my state, but a psych eval. And she was essentially dodging it out. She was dodging it, seemingly. Allegedly, she was dodging the psych eval. At the same time that one of the body camera interactions is going on with Charles and the police trying to get a hold of Lori and all this stuff, she went ahead and went to the police. She went to the police ahead of time, tried to get ahead of it, I guess. And so she goes there with her daughter, Tylee. Okay, bad move in my opinion. You don't want to drag kids into crap like this. But she goes there with her daughter, Tylee. And she goes there with Melanie Gibbs. So think, another one of the group of 6. And she's going to come up later. But just so, she's got a backup. And I'm not saying, in my opinion, you don't bring kids into things like this unless they're a witness to something. That's my opinion. Secondly, because it's damaging to them. Secondly, Melanie Gibbs, as a friend going along with Lori to the police, that are trying to serve her with some paperwork for psych eval. Now, where she went didn't have the paperwork, so otherwise they would have just taken care of it. In my opinion, Melanie Gibb going along and making it seem like she's just normal as can be is, in a way, you're vouching. She vouched in a way for Lori. I don't like that. And that's my opinion. I think, Melanie, if you ever were to watch something like this, you in a way vouched for Lori by going in there to the police station and ho-hoing it up about her husband Charles. And in a way, just by being there and propping her up, knowing what she and you talked about on the side and believed in, you in a way were vouching for her. And I think you need to own that. That's my opinion. Lori literally is laughing in these police interviews. And again, we've got the body camera footage. She's laughing it up. Not a care in the world. She's got her daughter there. She's got her buddy Melanie G there. She's telling the police that, yeah, Charles, why do you think he's doing this? Well, because he's having an affair. So she puts everything on Charles. That, Charles is doing all this because he is the guilty party. He's had the affair. That's a paraphrase. But so after they have the chinwag at the police station, the police even, this grinds my gears, they even kind of give her tips. She's flirting. In my opinion, she's flirting with the police. And the police are flirting back with her. And she's this blonde, tall woman, not a bad-looking woman by any stretch of the imagination. And there's some flirting going on. in the police station, in my opinion, and she's working it, and they're even giving her tips, like, well, you know, once the paperwork, if you get out of here, essentially, if you get, this is paraphrased, if you get out of here before the police come with the other group come with the paperwork, you can go. I mean, all they had to say is, Ms. Vallow, you're not under arrest and you're free to go anytime you want. That's, to me, what an ethical police officer, in my opinion, would do, is say, Ms. Vallow, you are not in custody. You came in here of your own accord, and until the paperwork's here, you are free to go anytime you want. You're not in custody. You're covered then. You don't sit there and ho-ho it up about her husband and what she can do to avoid getting the service or getting the paperwork served about the psych eval. You don't need to do that. That was unnecessary. And I don't know if it was due to the flirting or if it was somebody not being trained well enough, and that's just my opinion. Lori goes off and goes to the community bridges. She's going to kind of preempt everything. She finds out something, she's going to go on her own terms and bring her buddies, you know. So then she goes to the community bridges for her psych eval, and again brings, I do believe, her daughter and Melanie Gibb again. Now, they didn't get to go back and hear what she told the psychiatrist, but obviously she was let go right away, so she wasn't deemed to be a danger to herself or others. So lickety split, in and out. Lori's free. So February 4th, Charles Vallow files an order of protection against Lori. That's implying he doesn't feel safe. He doesn't feel, safe. And so by February 8th, he's filing the divorce papers. Granted, sometimes you can call your attorney the week before and it takes them a week to get everything properly ready to go. So more than likely he was probably, by the time the order of protection was going through, they were also probably working on the dissolution of marriage, or the petition for dissolution. But that's my opinion, just knowing how things take a little bit of time to get all the facts together. And so Charles Vallow actually files for the divorce against Lori on February 8th, 2019. Petitions for dissolution of the marriage. He suspects Lori of infidelity. These are things that were stated in the petition. He stated that Lori, his wife, was mentally unstable, that she threatened to kill him, that she drained $35,000 from his business accounts. He attested that Lori called Charles by a different name and said that a man named Nick Schneider, an entity named Nick Schneider, had gotten into his body, and that he wasn't even himself anymore. He was now Nick Schneider, and that entity had killed off Charles Vallow. So almost like possession, demon possession. This entity, Nick Schneider, had gotten into Charles. Like, you're not Charles anymore. You're really Nick Schneider. Charles is dead. This is the kind of stuff she's telling her husband, and this is the kind of stuff that ends up in the petition for dissolution of marriage. And that she was off and running with this zombie concept, that her husband was now a zombie. I know, you guys, a zombie. I don't know what she told the psychiatrist. I don't know if she said, oh, I don't think he's a zombie. I don't think anybody's a zombie. I do not know. And I don't think we'll ever know. I think it might likely be always protected unless she wants to bring it forward in some kind of a defense maneuver, but I don't know. So meanwhile, Charles Vallow had $1 million life insurance policy that listed the beneficiary as Lori Vallow, his wife, as it's very commonly done. However, what he did was he changed the beneficiary designation to his sister, Kay Woodcock. Way to go, Charles. And so, that's what people commonly do when they have their estate planning set up a certain way, and then when they go to get a divorce and put the petition through, they'll go ahead and start changing their beneficiary designations if they can. Because why would you want to die and then leave your ex-wife $1 million when you'd rather give it to your sister? Especially since the sister is the grandmother of JJ Vallow. Lori knew that Charles had $1 million life insurance policy. Lori also knew that she was at one time would be the beneficiary of that $1 million life insurance policy, but she was not sure if she was still listed as the person, because he wasn't going to go and put it on a loudspeaker, hey, I've changed my beneficiary designation. I mean, especially with her being allegedly so unstable, would you want to poke the beast? So Melanie Gibb, the member of the Six and the friend of Chad and Lori Daybell, has done an interview and said that Chad and Lori spoke daily on the phone. They had a separate phone, and the interviewer asked if it's a burner phone, and she said she didn't know what a burner phone was, but it's seemingly like they use burner phones. So Chad Daybell, who's married to his wife for 30 years, is getting a burner phone so he can talk to old Lori, who's also trying now, her husband's trying to divorce her, so they're been talking it up, on these burner phones. I don't know if you can also text on a burner phone, but that's a sad thing that I don't know if we'll ever know what went back and forth between them on texts if they used a burner phone. Charles Vallow, on March 6, 2019, drops the divorce against Lori. He at least drops the paperwork. So he calls his attorney and says, allegedly, let's not do this divorce. And here's, I think, the reason why. Relationships are complicated. Chad Daybell is married to Tammy. Lori's married to Charles. They seemingly want to be together. Lori and Chad want to be together, but they're married, so they'd have to both get divorced to get married on Earth, on this plane. They've been married before in all these other lifetimes and all these different planets. Yeah, right. I know. But Chad goes beyond the veil and asks allegedly about this divorce concept, and he's told, oh, no, you're not allowed to divorce. So this really throws a monkey wrench. This is the legal thing. This is what normal people do. You just go and you get a divorce and you marry who you want to marry, right? No. He was told that he wasn't allowed to that wasn't going to happen. They weren't going to get a divorce. So now you've got a powder keg. And so he was told by the spirit realm, allegedly, that divorce was not an option. So Charles Vallow drops the divorce against Lori. But by the next day, March 7th, 2019, he takes JJ, because he's blood related to this adopted son, JJ. He takes JJ, Lori's been on the lam, and he moves to Houston, Texas. They go. And this is an allegation that came out. I don't necessarily believe it. So I'll tell you something, I don't really even believe it, but they said allegedly the Daily Mail printed that the Mormon Church excommunicated Chad Daybell for claiming that he was a prophet. Now, did Chad Daybell allegedly proclaim he was a prophet? Oh, I bet. But I don't think that he was actually excommunicated for it. He could have been. I do question that source, but there is information out there that in the fall of 2019 that he was excommunicated. If so, that would definitely put more of more friction out there in his mind in these relationships, because Chad Daybell is selling his books mostly to an LDS group. You don't want to be excommunicated. That's going to cut off your income supply if it's coming from your publishing and your literary endeavors, right? Now, if you get a nice fat life insurance check, that might be different though, right? Keep that in mind. So by June 2019, Charles Vallow tries to make the relationship with Lori work. So good-hearted Charles goes back from Texas to Arizona to make it work with Lori, but they're not living in the same house. On June 29th of 2019, this is another part where it kicks off, because Charles finds an email 12 days before his death. So think, 12 days from now, Charles is going to be dead. He finds an email. This is so twisted. And he says that Lori, his wife, has created a fake email account pretending to be him, emailing Chad, asking to be a ghostwriter on a novel, asking Chad to ghostwrite a novel. But see, the thing is Charles wasn't writing a novel. Charles did not have literary dreams. This was a way of Lori, I don't know. The email says, come here for a couple of days and help me get the book underway. You could stay in our guest room like before. So this email is seemingly having Charles asking Chad to come stay at the Vallow house so that Chad can help Charles with some book he's not writing. But in a way, it's like, was that a way to get Chad in the house so that then some fracas could occur and self-defense could be out on the table? And you might be going, why would you go there? Because it ends up happening in another situation. So let's see. Charles sees this email, goes, I didn't write this. This is a fake account. Recognizes a ruse and said he was going to send this crazy email to Tammy Daybell with his suspicions. So Charles Vallow, was going to take this email, call up Tammy, and be like, look, something's going on with your husband and my wife. And now there's some fake email account, like asking him to come to our house. Like I asked him, I didn't ask him. I'm not writing a book. You know what I mean? Like there's something going on with their spouses. So I think this is another thing that set the fire. This was going to put the relationship on blast. So July 10th, 2019, Charles and Lori's relationship's very rocky. He does not trust her. He's finding shenanigans. He's finding emails. And the night before Charles died, Lori allegedly calls we'll call him Brother Alex, calls Brother Alex Cox to come and stay with her to protect her against Charles, because Charles was coming up to pick up JJ. But she allegedly makes it out to Alex that Charles was coming to kill her. And could Alex come and protect her? Be here because Charles is coming. She doesn't say, oh, we have a scheduled appointment for Charles to pick up JJ. No, that's not what she says. Allegedly, she goes and gets Alex Cox, all thinking that she was under some kind of danger. And if you were to watch the body cam videos of Charles Vallow, he does not seem dangerous. But, that's neither here nor there. By July 11th, 2019, Charles Vallow, fourth husband of Lori, was killed by her brother Alex. Yes, at this point, Charles and Lori were estranged. Charles goes to pick up JJ at the 5500 block of South Fork Peaks Place in Chandler, Arizona. Allegedly, according to Alex Cox, because then there's body cam video, so you can watch him I want to call it an interview. He's just sitting on the sidewalk talking to the police officers, but you can watch that. And Charles and Lori started arguing, he said. This is what Alex said. And that Alex Cox intervened, that Alex Cox was hit in the head with a baseball bat by Charles Vallow, and that he shoots Charles in the chest, claiming self-defense. So you got to understand that the police show up on the scene. It looks like there's been a domestic argument, perhaps between Charles and Lori, and that her brother, who's just happened to be there, they were going to do some fun things that day, and stuck up for his sister, his poor beleaguered sister, and it was self-defense. That's what Alex tells the police officers. Cox did call 911, and you can hear the 911 call, and people allege that he performed CPR on Charles. It's kind of ironic because when you listen to the 911 call, he was asked to do CPR by the 911 operator, and he said, no, I don't know how to do that, but I think she said she would walk him through it. So it wasn't like as if he was totally operating in self-defense and then after Charles was down was like all on it to give him CPR. No, he called 911 because Lori hightailed it out of there with the two other witnesses, and the 911 operator tried to get him to perform CPR on the person he had shot. Seemingly, Lori's children were there as witnesses when their father, Charles, was shot by Alex Cox. Later, every single witness to this event, to this incident, will be dead, guys. Will be dead, except for Lori. Let that sink in. Every single person that was a witness to this event will be dead, except for Lori. That's why this case is crazy. After Charles's death, his eldest son, see, because Charles has had a previous wife and older children. His eldest son learns of his father's death on the news. Cold, Lori, you are cold. No matter what comes out in this court case and whether you're mentally stable or not, you are cold to not notify these children of their father's death. And that goes back for Joe. That goes for Joe, and that goes for Charles. That is cold-blooded. On the body cam video that you can see, Alex Cox alleges Charles got physical with his sister Lori, and that Ty Lee, his niece, came out of her bedroom with a bat and that she just simply poked Charles with it, and that Charles grabs the bat, and that at some point, I love this, at some point, like no one can ever say, I did this, you did this, you did this, you did this. Nothing is coherent about his statement, in my opinion. And at some point, Charles struck Alex with the bat, and that Alex then goes to the bedroom and gets his gun and shoots Charles twice in the chest, or 4 times in the chest. I've seen 2 different reports on that. And then he goes and returns the gun to the bedroom and like addresses his, head wound or whatever, from the baseball bat wound. So allegedly he hits you over the head with a baseball bat, but then he sits around so you can go get a gun in a bedroom and come back and shoot. Like, who sits around? When you're having a fight, usually you're having a fight. But nothing about this story makes any sense whatsoever. Apparently, Tylee saw at least an initial argument of some kind. And then JJ was being picked up. So at different points, he was in the car. And then allegedly, Lori packed both them off and drove off before paramedics and the police arrived. So she legged it out of there. And again, later on in this whole story, you'll see that this is a kind of a common denominator with her just legging it. Whenever things get tough, she'll leave brother Alex to deal with it. So let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. It's July 2019 when this murder or self-defense, this homicide happens. Did Lori have her brother Alex, kill her estranged husband Charles because she was thinking that she was still the beneficiary of the $1 million life insurance policy? Allegedly, Charles wanted the insurance company to investigate his wife for changing his passwords to the $1 million policy and even changing his PIN. So he had seen that someone had gone in there and tried to access the account, tried to change the PIN, and he had contacted the life insurance company and said, no, I do not want I don't want Lori Vallow as my designated beneficiary. It's now Kay Woodward, my sister. And so I think that maybe, in my opinion, she thought that she was the beneficiary, and maybe, in my opinion, why you ask yourself, why would Alex Cox do this for his sister? Well, did she tell him that her husband was coming and she feared for her life and he believed that? Or did she tell him maybe that he could have a cut of the life insurance? We do not know. We honestly do not know. And if she was using burner phones to call and text, we don't know what kind of a trail's left. The police know, and I'm assuming that the prosecution and the state will be able to put together some kind of coherent case. According to a family member, Lori found the change of beneficiary form after this. And she texted, quote, to Charles Vallow's sister, Kay, the one that got the money, quote, 5 kids and no money, and his sister gets everything. So she was butthurt that she didn't get that money. It's got to suck if you kill somebody or if you have somebody killed for their life insurance policy and that person's changed the beneficiary designation to somebody else. That's gotta suck, huh? So the speculation on my part, was Alex Cox involved in plots to kill people for Lori? Did Lori promise her brother Alex a cut of the life insurance payout? Was he Lori's scapegoat? Was he Lori's strongman? I don't know. Okay, so come July/August 2019, I'm sure somebody else probably has the exact date, JJ had a service dog. It was a Labradoodle named Bailey, and it helped him sleep at night. It helped him calm down. And Lori tried to sell the dog. Now, if you've got a child that has special needs and relies on a service dog, why in the world would you sell the dog? So allegedly, the kennel or the trainer saw that she was trying to sell the dog, and they said no. I don't know if they had the first right of refusal if she would ever give the dog up. So they took the dog back. So good mama Lori got rid of the service dog for her son. Why? Was it because he wasn't going to need it anymore? So it's September 2019. Lori Vallow up and moves to Rexburg, Idaho. her husband. Charles is dead. She hasn't gotten any of the insurance money, and she won't. And she is getting like a sizable stipend from his death benefits and stuff. And also Tylee's allegedly getting also a good stipend from Joe Ryan's death benefit. So Lori's not destitute. Chad Daybell, boy, he hadn't moved to Arizona to be with Lori, so Lori went to Chad. And so Lori assumed that Chad's wife, Tammy, would die before Lori moved up there. Yeah, see, visions had been had, and Chad just kept getting these visions that his wife is going to die. Just, you're a stand-up guy, Chad. You're just great. Did you tell your wife, Tammy, that she was going to die? Did you do that? Did you tell her of your worries? Or did you just tell everybody else? Allegedly. Oh, gosh. Sorry for the snark. It's just after a while, it's like the BS detector has gone off so much that I think it's broken. So Chad had gotten the information from the other side of the veil that his wife, Tammy, was going to die. And she was going to die before Lori moved up there, but then she didn't die. It just didn't happen. And so Lori went ahead and legged it and moved up to Rexburg. And the friend Melanie Gibb has given an interview to say that Lori allegedly needed to be up there by a certain time in Rexburg, and that Chad and Lori were going around openly affectionate with each other before his own wife Tammy's death, in more or less the same city as she existed. Again, Tammy seems to me that she was pretty, not a helicopter wife. She wasn't following him around, and that they were skeezing around. That he and Lori, in my opinion, were just kind of skeezing around, going places that they knew Tammy wasn't going to be, and they were out acting kind of like a couple. And allegedly a lot of people didn't know what Tammy looked like, and so they were just living their best lives. On September 9th, Chad Daybell allegedly texted Tammy regarding shooting a raccoon. And you might say, well, who cares? Well, the thing is a neighbor had allegedly heard a gunshot. And when somebody asked, what was that, coming from your backyard, this raccoon story came out that Chad had seen a raccoon and shot the raccoon. So then he went and texted Tammy like, yeah, I was out by your pet cemetery and I shot a raccoon. That's paraphrase. And I guess Tammy had said, oh, good job. Or something. So he was covering, in my mind, if I was to speculate, someone heard a gunshot and he was justifying it by saying, oh, that was just that raccoon that we killed. Now, was a raccoon really killed? I don't know. But on September 9th, there was some kind of gunshots that were being noticed by the neighbors, enough for them to remark about it. On September 23rd, 2019, something very crucial happened. I'm not sure what the tipping point was for all this to go so crazy. Maybe it had already started going crazy with the death of Charles. But something even made it go crazier, because September 23rd, 2019 was the last day anybody saw JJ. He was seen on the, I think it was like a security system at his elementary school in Idaho. But then after that, he was never seen again. And Lori told some people when they asked about JJ, because he was always around, a special needs kid, probably creating a ruckus, having a good time and being extra. She told people that JJ went to live with his grandmother or visit his grandmother, Kay Woodcock. But mind you, in theory, if he went with Kay, he would need his medication. He would need his iPad. He would need all these things, right? When you get JJ, you get the dog. You get all the stuff to keep him stable. And at this time, her friend Melanie G comes to stay with Lori. And around this time that he's seen on this security video, the day before, Lori's sitting there telling Melanie G that JJ's become a zombie. Now remember, the zombie talk happened to Charles. Allegedly, Chad Daybell told Lori, I think Charles has become a zombie, and then she told Charles, this Nick Schneider's in you, you're dead, Nick Schneider's in you, and look what happens to zombies. Well, now Melanie Gibbs up there visiting Lori, and JJ's there, and she's like, look at him, he's becoming a zombie. And allegedly, through Melanie Gibb. And I don't think she's exactly an accurate historian, by the way, but allegedly Melanie Gibb tells us now that Lori was side-eyeing JJ, saying, he's acting like a zombie. Look at him, he's doing that. I think he's a zombie. And we know what happens to zombies, right? Just like Charles had been a zombie. The interviewer who Melanie is now telling this to, now in today's world, in today's timeline, asked, well, what did you guys do with these zombies? And she said they would be prayed away. Well, Charles wasn't just prayed away, was he? I don't know if that's completely accurate. But I digress. So Lori's telling Melanie and other people that Tylee was at school. Because when Melanie's there visiting on September 23rd, allegedly, September 22nd, 23rd, Tylee's not there at all. Nobody's seen Tylee since maybe September 9th, possibly, or earlier than that. Nobody's seen Tylee. So she says, oh, Tylee's at school, JJ's here, but he's become a zombie. Allegedly, Melanie sees brother Alex carrying JJ off somewhere at some point. I don't know. This whole thing is so horrible to even talk about. I'm sorry. On September 24th, 2019, JJ's unenrolled from the Kennedy Elementary School. So Lori goes up there and she tells them that she's going to be homeschooling JJ. So she tells them a different story. She doesn't say he's off with his grandmother Kay. She says, oh, I'm going to homeschool him. So I'm taking him out of school. And it's also Tylee's birthday, but there's no celebration or any sign of Tylee. So then it's October 1st, 2019, and Lori rents a storage unit. And what's in the storage unit? There's other things in the storage unit, but there's also the kids' stuff is in the storage unit, guys. The kids' stuff, Tylee's stuff, JJ stuff, that's what's in the storage unit. Also, people have made a lot of hash and a lot of Zapruder film type investigation of Lori and Chad and allegedly Alex, brother Alex, coming and going into the storage unit on certain days. And I'm sure that's valid and maybe even will make it into the state's case against them if charges are filed. I think it's important. I have not done the Zapruder-like investigation. It looks to me that they're moving around heavy objects that could be a tire and maybe a back seat of a Jeep, and that will be important in what I'm going to tell you coming next. So on October 2nd, 2019, a family member, Brandon Boudreaux, who is the husband of Melanie, one of the two Melanies that are in this group, this small group of doomsday preppers. Some people call them a cult. That's the cousin of Lori, and they're all very close. And according to Brandon Boudreaux, Melanie, his wife, was influenced by Lori. So this is Melanie, we'll call her Melanie B. He said that he didn't think it was a coincidence that so many of these family members have died because there had been an attempt on his own life on October 2nd, 2019. He said that someone shot at him when he came home from the gym. So he's pulling into his driveway at 9 a.m. in his Tesla, and a gun with a silencer pokes out of a Jeep's window and shoots at him. And you can see the released pictures. The car, his Tesla is like got a bullet hole and a broken window, so it actually was a real gun. And there's a reason why I'm bringing that up. But the shooter's car was shown to be registered to Charles Vallow. Deceased, by the way, guys. So it can't have been Charles. He's dead. He's dead. Tylee was the one who drove Charles's Jeep. She was the one that was tooling around in Charles's Jeep. However, it wasn't Tylee that shot at Brandon Boudreaux, because all this is captured on a video surveillance, and there were some witnesses. And the Jeep, again, commonly used by Tylee, but she allegedly wasn't in the vehicle. So Brandon thinks, or I'm not sure, honestly I'm not sure if Brandon says it was Alex. He saw the gun, he saw the silencer. I think he might have seen a male figure, but he believes it was Alex Cox that shot at him. However, we don't know if he was alone, because here's the thing. If you're going to shoot somebody using your Jeep and you're going to shoot out the back of your window, you have to move that tire that the Jeep has, at the big back tire. And that's the tire that's allegedly seen being rolled in and out of the storage unit around these time periods by Lori and allegedly Chad Daybell. For brother Alex, so he can go and do a shoot up. I know it's crazy, guys. I know it's absolutely insane. But you can't, even though people are going to probably want to throw all these murders, all these suspicious deaths on brother Alex, even if they say, oh, Lori told him to do it or convinced him to do it or he did it just to be a strong man for Lori or whatever the story is, you still got the fingers of Lori and Chad Daybell in this too, helping out, moving the tire. Other people think the reason that the tire was moved and somebody shot out the back is because there were two people. There was a driver and then allegedly Alex in the back shooting out the back. So I do not know. I think that's still a question mark in this case of who exactly was in the car that shot at Brandon Boudreaux, husband of Melanie. But according to the other Melanie, I know this gets so insane, after Brandon Boudreaux was shot by Alex Cox, so she goes ahead and fingers Alex Cox. Melanie Boudreaux, the wife of Brandon, asked Melanie Gibb to drive by the house because she was worried about the children. And you're just like, 2 weeks later, she goes and has the other Melanie go and do like a recon or something. The thing is allegedly Melanie knew exactly where her children were because allegedly she'd given one of them a watch that had GPS on it. So I don't know why they had the other Melanie like doing recon and scouting around. I don't know if they were looking to make her a scapegoat. I have no idea. I don't know what these people do or how they think. But this is some of the stuff that's in the timeline. Make of it what you will. 7 days later, October 9th, 2019, Tammy Daybell, she calls Fremont County Sheriff's Office and reports that a masked man has shot at her in her own driveway with what she thinks is a paintball gun. Because you got to think, this poor woman, she probably didn't know what a gun with silencer even looked like. She seemingly wasn't a gun nut.